is Manuel. I'm a nursing student at UTMB, and today my partner and I are going to show you some cooking techniques that you can do at home. The first two techniques I'm going to show you is how to dice an onion and how to cook your vegetables inside the oven. Let's go ahead and get started. So make sure you have a sharp knife. We're going to cut the onion in half from root to root. Just cut it as closest to a half as you can. You're going to take one of the halves and you're going to cut along one of the roots. And you're going to go ahead and discard that. Now the onion should be easier to peel, and you can go ahead and peel that outer covering of the onion. Once that's done, the onion's ready to cut. Now the onion is ready to cut. And when you're gripping the onion, you want to hold it in a claw-like fashion to avoid cutting your fingers. It'll also help guide the cutting process when you're slicing the onion. So with the knife facing the root, you want to make slices up and down the onion, but pretty evenly. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just enough space so that you can get your knife through. And you're going to cut as closest to the root as possible. You should have something that looks like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now we're going to cut perpendicular to those lines that we just cut. And you're going to want to make sure that your hand is in the claw position so that you don't cut your fingers. I like my onion slices a little bit thicker, which is why I left more space in between each of my cuts on the first part. After slicing it all the way, your onion should look something like this. Next, I'm going to show you a really easy method to cook root vegetables such as potatoes and carrots using the oven method. All you need is a baking sheet, your vegetable of choice, some tin foil, and your spices of choice. You can use any spices you like. I use olive oil, some salt, paprika, parsley flakes, and some pepper. You're going to want to drizzle over some olive oil so it doesn't stick to the pan. Like I said, you could add any spices you like, so I added some salt, my paprika, my pepper, and my parsley flakes. Give it all a good mix, and flip them so that they're all facing the same side. All you gotta do is place them in the oven for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, take them out of the oven and place them on the counter. After you've flipped them, put them back in the oven for another 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, your potatoes are now ready. If you prefer crispier potatoes, you can put them in for a couple more minutes. It just depends on you.
Hi, my name is Sheena, and I'm a third semester nursing student at UTMB School of Nursing, and I'm going to be showing you the other 3 of our 5 cooking techniques today. The first of which is going to be sauteing, so I'm going to saute some zucchini and squash for y'all. And then next will be searing. Searing is good to use before braising a meat. Kind of creates like a crust or outer layer to help keep the juices in the meat whenever you're going to be cooking them for a long time, like in a crock pot or if you are pot roasting them on the stove. And then also how to cut a pesam, which is basically just cutting vegetables into little squares, maybe about the size of a Scrabble tile, and you have to just square the vegetable off first, but I will show you guys that. Thanks. Okay, so whenever you're going to be sauteing your vegetables, you can use a skillet or saute pan, and you'll want to heat it over medium heat just to get it warmed up. And whenever you saute, you're basically using a dry cooking method, but you do need a little bit of fat in the pan. You can use anything from butter to canola oil, just anything like that. We're going to use some extra virgin olive oil today, and we are going to saute some zucchini and squash that was halved and sliced. You just need enough oil to kind of coat the bottom of the pan. Once it heats up, it does kind of spread out a little bit more. So So you'll add your vegetables in. I usually stir it just to make sure I've got the vegetables kind of coated in oil. And you don't have to sit here and just repeatedly stir it. If it's on medium heat, you should be able to just stir it occasionally. So we're going to let these cook for a little bit, and then we will come back at the end of it. So the zucchini and squash is kind of translucent now, and it's got some decent color on it. I went ahead and added a little bit of salt and pepper to it. But basically with sauteing, how long you cook, it's really going to depend on what you're cooking. So like zucchini and squash is not going to take very long, especially if you don't want it to be overcooked. But with meats and that sort of thing, of course you'll cook them longer, and usually because they are cooked longer, they'll end up with a little bit better color to them. But that is how to saute. Okay, so as far as searing goes, it's best to use like a thick or heavy bottom pan, and if you're going to be braising it, like moving it to a crock pot, then it's fine to use a different pan and then transfer it to your crock pot. If you're going to be, say, doing a pot roast or pot roasting it on the stove, then you can usually just braise it in the pan that you're going to be using for that. We're going to use a beef shoulder roast today, I think. So I've got cast iron pan here that is heated up. You're going to want to add about a tablespoon of oil to the bottom of that pan. Let it heat up. So when you're ready to put your meat in the pan, you're just going to set it in there very carefully. And you're going to let that sit there and sear until it's got like a nice brown crust on that side. And then you're going to flip it over and do the other side. Okay, so the other side has been braising or searing for a little bit. We're going to check it. I usually use barbecue tongs, just because heavier meat usually is hard to get turned with just regular kitchen tongs. So on there you can see we've got the nice little brown crust on there. So we're going to go ahead and sear the other side. It'll probably take maybe 5 to 7 minutes more, and then it will be done and ready to be slow cooked. See, it has that nice brown crust on it. That'll help keep it moist whenever it is slow cooking. And if you want, you can try to get the edges of the meat and do those for just a little bit as well. And once you're done searing it, you can transfer it to your crock pot or to whatever pot you're going to use on the stove to slow roast it. And that is searing. Okay, so last we are going to make a Pesam, which is basically just cutting vegetables into little squares. It's a little bit different than a dice. They end up being about the size of a Scrabble tile. So basically you take a vegetable, I'm using a daikon radish as an example, but a lot of people use like potatoes and that sort of thing when they do this. So you're going to want to round or square off the edges instead of having them round. Take this last piece, and instead of cutting that rounded edge off, you're just going to cut it in half to where it's about the right size each piece is. So we'll set that to the side. You're going to take this one and cut it to where you have about the size of a cube there. So from there, you're going to lay the tip of your knife down, and you're going to be cutting with the end of the knife here. So just always be mindful of where your fingers are. I know a lot of people will hold them like this. That's usually safer if you have your hand like that. I'm just not used to doing it that way and keeping an eye on my fingers. So when you're done, you end up with little cute squares. You can saute these or do whatever you want with them, and by no means waste the rest of your vegetable that you cut the rounded edges off of. You can cut it up and use it in soups or anything like that. So that is making a Pesam, or little squares, out of your vegetables. Okay guys, so that was my quick little tutorial on how to saute vegetables, sear a roast, and how to cut a Pesam. We're hoping that our 5 little tips and tricks will help you out and that you'll give them a try the next time you're cooking. Also, if you shop at Galveston's own farmers market, keep in mind that if you have SNAP benefits, they do accept SNAP benefits. And they also have a kind of like a price matching program, or actually they have 2. So they will match the amount of SNAP benefits spent up to $15 in fresh bucks, and then they will also match up to $15 in bonus bucks as well. So that's a great program to take advantage of, and you will get more for your money. Thank you.